Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 906th meeting of the Amateur Telescope Makers of Boston. Tonight's refreshments are provided by Bruce Tinkler, who's in the back room cooking up whatever he's cooking up. I saw him chasing a cat in the lobby there, but that's...
Is this a wanted poster here?
That is, yeah. That's the one, Fred. Go ahead, come on up. We'll have our secretary's report, Phil Levine. We'll get things going.
Summary of the ATMoB meeting held January 11, 2018, here at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics in the Phillips Auditorium. Club President Glenn Chappell called the meeting to order at 8 p.m. The Secretary, Treasurer, membership, observing and clubhouse reports were presented. For details, please see Starfield's newsletter or the YouTube video. Announcements: Ariana Roberts, participant in the Citizen Kate experiment for the 2017 total solar eclipse, was highlighted in Glenn Chappell's Observing Basics column in the February 2018 edition of Astronomy magazine. Ariana received funding and equipment training from ATMoB for the August 21 total solar eclipse. There was an ATMoB board meeting January 18 at the Westford Clubhouse. A summary will be read after the secretary minutes. Sky and Telescope is sponsoring a summer internship. For information, contact C. Carlisle at skyandtelescope.com. John Sheff here this evening? Nope. John informed the membership that the CFA Public Astronomy Night, which is the third Thursday each month, will not be held for the month of March. Eileen Myers updated the membership about the Acton Star Party.
That must have been February. Or, soon, all right.
Yeah, there is one in February.
There is one next Thursday. I don't know about next month.
Oh, okay, but March.
Yeah,
No,
I'll
Okay.
find out.
Eileen updated the membership about the Acton Star Party. Is that still scheduled for March 5? And another Star Party at the Acton Synagogue has been rescheduled for March 17?
No, they just canceled it.
Well, then there you have it. The guest speaker for the evening was ATMoB Observing Committee member Rich Nugent. His talk was entitled Observing Satellites. Rich began by presenting a historical overview of the first satellites launched into space, which began with Sputnik on October 4, 1957. Anna Hillier of ATMoB was on the roof of the Harvard Observatory as part of Project Moonwatch and was the first person to spot Sputnik. Rich brought an old Operation Moonwatch bench instrument to the meeting, a Wildfield Optics 2. A number of different satellites were discussed: geostationary, military, weather, communication. Glenn Chappell adjourned the meeting at 9:40. And I'm going to read a summary of the ATMoB board meeting, which was held January 18. The agenda, the ATMoB website, discussion on how to change club username, password, and photo. Discussion on the ease of doing that. Star Party, Popscope, outreach issues. There was a discussion about possibly combining all into an outreach committee. Glenn to send an email to the membership via ATMoB, discuss the feedback. Observing committee. There was a discussion, should there be more members as part of that committee? Mirror grinding. Should the club establish a mirror making committee? The current status of the mirror making at the clubhouse was discussed regarding current usage and the need for new equipment. Mike Maddy, Tom McDonough, and Phil Roundsmill to meet and discuss. Glenn will ask if someone from the mirror making group would like to attend future board meetings. Club archivist. There was a discussion regarding who has historical materials and where this information is located. Should material be scanned and placed on the ATMoB website? Should Starfield's newsletter highlight different club historical events from 10, 15, 25 years ago? There was a lot of discussion about the two-person rule. And clarification of this clubhouse rule is needed for safety reasons. There was a discussion of installing a phone landline in the machine shop and possible purchase of an automated external defibrillator for the clubhouse. Tom McDonough of the two-person rule subcommittee will rewrite the two-person rule and submit to the board for approval. The club workshop reservation system was discussed, as well as a reservation system for the different observatories. Telescope donations to ATMoB. Future donations will be selectively evaluated for possible inclusion to the telescope inventory. The board discussed possibly selling some telescopes to raise funds for the club. Next agenda item, ATMoB pin patch decal. The board determined that no logo changes for these items are necessary. Glenn to contact Paul Vallely for a photo of the old club pin. Shortening of the monthly business meeting. Glenn is leaving his position as club president, and he's leaving content of the meeting up to the next club president. Phil Levine suggested shortening the club secretary report. Monthly refreshment schedule. Discussion of opening participation to general club membership. And the last item, club offices. There will be openings for club president, club vice president, and club secretary when the current term expires. Thank you.
Okay, as far as the observing committee report, Bruce isn't here tonight. We'll see what's going on. This is a picture that Rich Nugent took. He's not here tonight. I think he's seeing his son off. His son's going in the Navy service. But he got up early in the morning for that eclipse. The last full moon we had, there was an eclipse. It started. I didn't even mention much about it because I didn't think anyone would be crazy enough to get up in the early morning to maybe watch the moon get lost in the trees. He obviously had a nice horizon to pick it out. And it looks like a totally eclipsed moon, but that's kind of an illusion. It's just like the sun, when it gets low in the sky, it gets that orange color. So that's what that is, and there's a little chunk there. The eclipse just started at that point. Of course, folks out in California got the good show. And this is what is it? Anybody have any idea? There's another picture that Rich took.
Venus.
We got all smart people here. We're all observers. What is that? Okay. Did I push a button or something?
Yeah, it's your fault. It's got a mic of its own.
Okay, thank you.
Scans your hardware, looking for driver.
It's a daytime shot.
Yeah, I thought it was Elon Musk's car, maybe. I don't know.
Have you read that?
Well, one of the things is the Venus was about 6 degrees from the sun when he took this picture. I was hoping he'd be here to explain a little bit more what he did, but that was taken with his cell phone, which is kind of a nice shot. You can see the full moon appearance of Venus. That's not too bad a deal. But again, if you want to check out Venus now, you got to be really careful because it's very close to the sun.
It's cell phone through a telescope, right?
Yeah, right. You can do it. In fact, when I do a star party sometimes with high school kids, I like to do it when there's a moon in the sky, like a quarter moon or whatever. And I'll usually bring a little 4-inch daub, and I'll have the kids, I'll show them how to take a cell phone picture, and they just leave it there because it's user-friendly. The kids can be playing around with that while I'm doing the regular program with the 10-inch scope. Not a lot going on astronomically in the month ahead. On the February 11th in the morning, Saturn and the waning crescent moon will pair up in the morning sky again. And I'll call Rich and have him make the observation for us. Well, by the way, just for a moment, close your eyes. Just for a moment. That's what I saw on the eclipse day. I just saw the inside of my eyelids. Oh, as far as Observer's Challenge, the LBAS, what they want us to look at this time is M41, that cluster that's just a little bit below the star Sirius. And it doesn't show all that well here, but it's one of these two stars is actually a red star. It's an M-type giant. And that's the thing, can you see that with a small aperture scope? I looked at M41 years ago with a little 3-inch scope, and I labeled one star as it seemed to be red. I re-observed a few years ago the 4.5-inch night. Definitely targeted a red star, and then in photographs online I saw it identified as that star. So you can pick it out with a small scope. Larger scope, the color should be a little bit more obvious. But that's the key with M41. He wanted to see how many could pick out that red star with a small aperture scope.
I took that with the 6-inch. It is red, but in order to get the background stars, that ends up overexposed.
Oh, that's right. There we go. There's the red star right there. And you see what happens when an old man the Sue French fan club. Sue wrote about the Winter's Mighty Hunter and did a lot about Orion the Hunter. And I picked out M78. That's Orion's other nebula. So it's bright in itself, but of course it's really outdone by M43. It's located not that far from Alnitak, kind of a little bit between Alnitak and Betelgeuse itself. And kind of a ghostly appearance. These two stars in the smallest scope, it almost looks like a ghost with two glowing eyes. It's a really neat object. So when you check out M43, just slide over and check out M78 as well. Now, Joe Rossile was kind enough to give us our member picks for the month, and he picked out 4. First one is the Eskimo Nebula in Gemini, which is fairly, all of these, by the way, are well plotted in the pocket sky atlas if you want to look for them. NGC 2903, which is just off the sickle of Leo the Lion. And this one, this is a Hubble image. That's IC 418 in Lepus. It's called the Raspberry Nebula. I knew nothing about it. I've never seen it. Anybody here that has seen that? Steve, you? Oh, and Joe?
Yeah, and I saw it first actually through the 17 clubhouse. What's interesting is those 3 objects are all 9th magnitude, between 8.9 and 9.3. That's actually the smallest one.
You know, I apologize. Do you want to get up and talk about these?
But anyway, the IC418 is 0.2 arc minutes across,
Yeah.
while the Eskimo is 4 times as large.
Yeah, these are
So
not
it's
to
very-
scale, obviously.
So the Eskimo is the one where you can see detail in a decent sized scope. Well, 418 is very bright, has very bright, but it's so small that you don't really see any detail.
Did you see any color? Because I know it's nicknamed the Raspberry Nebula. I heard it's got a very pinkish color. So that might be something to look for out at the club. And this is the Hubble image. It has this spirograph, you know those little things that kids play around to get all those little circles and everything. It has that very complex structure. But then this is a Hubble image right here. And finally, Rigel. So Joe did put in a double star, thank you. And if you're going to look for Sirius, because Sirius is a challenging, and the dwarf that circles Sirius now is getting more and more visible. And what I always recommend is start with Rigel first. If you can't split that, and this is about first magnitude and 8th, and it's about an 8 to 10 arc second separation. If you can't split that, don't even bother with Sirius. Now, Joe was kind of, he sent me a couple of charts, and I wasn't able to download them, but I found one for, but what I did was, I know very few of you know where Rigel is, so what you gotta do, you find IC 418 and Lepus, and if you look north, you see a first magnitude star. It's really bright, that's Rigel. Anybody have any questions, comments, additions to the Observer Committee report? You got it covered pretty well. No, nothing to add, Steve?
One thing, we had luck the last time Phil and I were observing at the clubhouse. We actually split Sirius. For me, it's the first time since 1982, 35 years. Took a long time, a lot of patience, but I do have a witness that we did split it. Did we not?
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard you say.
You heard me say, that was okay.
That's right.
Clubhouse report with Steve Clardy.
While I'm standing. We had a work party on February 8th. We had 18 volunteers, very good turnouts for winter. And our snowblower is working quite well. And we thank John Stodiak for the work that he did on that. He got it done just in time for that big snowstorm we had a few weeks ago. So we were able to use it. Let's see, on tap for the last work party, a basement project we've been working on is, you know, that in the past we had problems with some puddling and not flooding, but we had water seepage in the basement. And we used to have a sump pump we relied on quite a bit. And if we had a power outage, we could have a real problem. Last year, however, we dug out a lot of the area and backfilled it with gravel. So we now have a gravity feed that goes outside of the clubhouse. We don't need the sump pump anymore. So any water that collects will go out. We had a trench put in years and years ago. It's probably 150 feet, a 6-inch pipe underneath the observing field that goes out to the woods, pretty much. So that problem is largely solved. We did have a problem with water seepage through the foundation wall coming in around the oil tank in the basement. So we did some work this past work party, and I want to give a lot of credit to Slav, Mitch, who got down there and chiseled and ground out a lot of the cement that was around the oil tank itself. Years ago, we had, Ed Knight, in fact, put an oil pan under the entire tank, which collects any leakage from the tank itself, but it was filling up with water. So we were able to pretty much clean out around it, and we're hoping that that solves the problem with water collecting in that area. Let's see. So the basement's actually in pretty good shape overall. Now for the upstairs. Let's see. We did some work on the 25-inch job. Dave Proughton had to reset the focus that we installed about 3 years ago, and did some mechanical collimation for us. So we were finally able to do the final collimation with Phil Brownsville's help, and it was spot on. It's in good working order at this point. John Marr took the lead on the Meade 16. He's running that telescope these days. And he, with clubhouse money, he purchased a focuser from Moonlight, which we got for a pretty good discount, and he installed it during the work party. So for under $1,000, 2/3 of which was club money, about 1/3 of which was privately donated, we now have a fully operational 16-inch Meade scope, and it really works very well. It's fairly easy to use. It's not scary like the Aereo C14. It's pretty user-friendly, so I recommend that people try it out. It's a lot of fun. John also ran a course, a class, kind of a workshop for several members who are interested in using that telescope. It's not too hard to learn. If I can learn it, you can learn it. Let's see. We also cleaned out the evaporator room on the first floor. We have a little more room for storing a few additional telescopes. And the last thing I'd like to address is the mirror making part of the clubhouse. We're getting very serious about trying to kick up the mirror grinding and polishing activities a notch or two. And we've got several ideas. Tom McDonough and Mike Matty took the lead on this. We'd like to, in time, improve our grinding machines, possibly obtain another one, and ultimately build an auto collimator, hopefully with a 16-inch flat that's in good shape. The club owns 2 flats right now. We'd like to get those tested to find out what the actual numbers look like, and down the road put together an auto collimator. The feeling is that we've got people who would like to make a mirror, but in recent years it's kind of waned. We've only had a handful of people who've been serious about making mirrors, and our feeling is we'll get more people out there into the clubhouse making mirrors if we had more state-of-the-art equipment. So I think we're in a good position to tackle that next. We're finished with the observatory projects. We're finished with most of the clubhouse itself, so it's a good time to jump on it.
I'm thinking of doing a new 16 in a couple of years.
New 16? How would you like to do it out in Westford?
Maybe we'll do that.
Okay, I heard you've got a nice grinding machine.
That's taken apart.
Oh.
I'm thinking of doing it there.
Okay, I think you could put it together. Okay. So anyway, if anybody would like to find out more about that, or would like to lend their expertise, please talk to Tom. We'd like to get that project going this year. I'm behind at 200%. I'd like to see it done. Next work party is on March 3rd, and we'll have a few things on tap then. Hope to see you then. Thank you.
Now that picture shows a very ancient artifact.
Yeah.
Which one? Oh, no. This. And we'll have Tom in a minute talk about, we did decide to set up a couple of committees, one dedicated to telescope making, and I went to the clubhouse Saturday. I was hoping to get a picture actually of Julie Sage, one of our younger members who's grinding a mirror right now, but she wasn't there at the time. That's actually from an Edmund Scientific kit that I bought in 1970. And I started messing around, it wasn't working, and finally around the 1990s, mid-1990s, I went back and I talked to then President Bob Calera, and after everybody laughed that I'd spent 25 years doing nothing on it, we did a little bit more grinding, and then I sat around again. So now it's been 48 years since I bought that. So actually, one of the reasons I put this picture, now I'm committed. You've all seen it. I'm going to make an 8-inch, or rather 6-inch F10 I'm hoping for, and use it for Mars, because Mars will be at opposition this summer, and that'll be my swan song, I guess, as far as amateur astronomy goes. And Tom, you want to say a couple things about the mirror making?
I don't want to go into Steve covered
Yeah,
it
Steve covered pretty well.
but there is a groundswell in terms of being able to update our facilities. And as Steve said, we're looking to find some newer equipment or building some equipment to help us with building mirrors and analyzing mirrors. So I'm pretty excited about that. And again, if anyone's interested, you can speak to me about that. But we're pretty excited about getting a couple more people grinding mirrors, and I'm putting my foot in the ring also. I'm going to work on an 8-inch mirror and hopefully utilize some of the newer equipment that could become available very quickly to analyze and actually rough grind mirrors. So looking forward to that. If anyone has questions, again, you can speak to me. And really excited about potentially investing a little money into this part of the program and getting a little more interest in it. So thank you very much.
I hope right now very few people know what's going on. We'd like to, when somebody finishes a mirror, have them come in and we'll recognize what they've done, and also start putting things in the newsletter as well. So the next thing is an outreach. Is that a picture of... That's Mike back in the day. This is probably 20 years ago. But anyway, we are going to form an outreach committee. Again, I don't want to drag things out too much because I'm going to put out an email, but we're going to try to combine the star parties, PopScope, and I talked to Mike O'Shea the other day, and also we're going to try to work, if anybody does any type of a talk at a local library, put them all together. I will put this out right now. What we'd like is some coordinator for the whole thing. Basically, they would get the calls coming in, when are the star parties, and we want to make sure they get on our website and also announced in the newsletter. So we just want to publicize these. The difficult thing about star parties is we're getting old. It's harder for some of us to get around to some of these things like we were in the old days. But anyway, we hope that with a good coordinator, we can get this thing off the ground and get it going again. Announcements. We've got one. I didn't put a couple things up here. We are going to have some openings on the board. Of course, I'll be leaving, and I'm assuming Tom, we haven't targeted him yet, but you're still planning on moving in the slot, or do you have better thought? You know what happened to my heart during this tenure? Anyway, there will be an opening for president. There will be obviously an opening for vice president. We'll need a member at large. There will be 3 slots. I'll be putting something out as far as the rules for nominating and so forth, but we'll start that fairly soon, and we'll get everything taken care of in the next few months. So we'll be having a new board starting later this year, and then of course on the next year as well. Saturday, March 17th is the Messier Marathon. I forgot to call you about this, Steve, but that's the day that they've picked. And I think Steve would say the same thing. If it looks like it's going to be cloudy on the 17th, we might move it ahead to the 18th. I'm also planning on doing that double star marathon that I said a few years ago. So there is an option. If you don't want to do faint fuzzies or you've done it a number of times, there will be that double star marathon as well. Saturday, April 21st, speaking of outreach, it's Astronomy Day. And we haven't talked a lot about what we're doing on that day, but I've already contacted the Haystack Observatory and reserved a room for that evening. They can hold as many as 100 people. I've still got to work out the details as far as getting the word out, but it's going to be planned to target the communities in the Haystack area. And they can, again, handle up to about 100 people. We'll be meeting at about 7:30, and I'm going to give a talk that I give at Stellafane on how to get started in backyard astronomy. That's going to be the theme. Again, I'm looking for some people in the club to help out, and I'll put that out in an email. But at Stellafane, Alan French, Sue's husband, he does a talk about telescopes, a little bit about nuts and bolts of telescopes, and then I come in with a slide presentation on what you can see with a small telescope. So that's basically what I'm doing. If somebody wants to do a little bit of a talk beforehand on telescope to take Al's place, that would work out great. But that's going on. If the skies are clear, the talk will take about an hour. If skies are clear, we're going to go out and do some observing with telescopes. Yes?
Do we know about any other activities that are going on that day?
Not at this point.
Days of meet.
Yes.
Yeah, the next school used to do something for astronomy day, but they don't anymore. But that actually leads into something I was going to say. So it's not only Astronomy Day, but it's now formally IDA Dark Sky Week. starts the 15th and goes to the 21st. And a number of us, we've been part of NELPAC, Kelly Beatty and I, for quite a number of years. The push to move forward on this came from West Massachusetts. There's enough people now that suddenly want to be active that we're going to form a formal IDA Massachusetts chapter. Okay, and we got enough people now that can work, and it's statewide because we got people from all over the state now. Before it was silly to do that when it was just Kelly, me, and a couple of people around here. So we just had an hour telecon last night. It's going to be a web page. It's going to be formally incorporated. But that week is IDA Dark Sky Week, and Astronomy Days at the end of it on the 21st. Where one of the things is going to be ask groups to have some star parties, mention dark sky. So in addition to astronomy that you talk, do a little bit about dark sky.
Very good.
And we can put you in as a participant.
Okay.
That'd be great.
By the way, but you wanted, yeah, go ahead.
I think that's the weekend of NEAT, is it not?
Is it?
Yeah.
That's bad timing.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't put my in it.
Oh, okay. Well, I got it covered, and we'll see if we can get some other people that aren't going to need. Now, Mario, I know we kind of running short, but you're very upset about what's been going on with the state, and I know we don't want a cardiologist holding and having a heart attack. Do you want to give them just a quick summary of what our government is doing
I
here?
sent out a blurb because it came up suddenly that they were going to decide. Our illustrious legislature spent all this time doing absolutely nothing on any bill. And in one day to decide, we're going to decide which bills we're going to move. That's why I sent that blurb out. And despite quite a number of people calling in and phoning, they said, yeah, we got that check. Quite a number of people did that. Despite that, it went into study. Okay, 6,000 bill, just show you where our legislature does. New Hampshire, by the way, is all volunteers. They do about 600 to 700 bills a year.
They get $100 a year.
Okay, they get $100 a day, a year. A year. Basically, they're working for free. And they only go in, they only stay in session 2 to 3 months, get their work done and go back to their real job. Massachusetts has the highest paid legislature. Okay, it's something like $70,000 per person. They claim they work every minute of every day, 365 days a year. They get no bills done. 6,000 bills get submitted, 200 get acted on, which sound modestly okay, except 100 of those are proclamations. It's Mother's Day. So I'm a little annoyed. So they decided to put it into study, which is a polite way of saying they're not going to work on it. And it's not just us, it's practically every bill that was submitted, they're not doing a single. They can't even get their budget done. So we have a completely dysfunctional legislature. And compared to New Hampshire, I think we should pay them nothing, and maybe they'll get some work done. Do you want me to talk about talk next week? Is that right? Yeah. So, as an aside on that, I think you know about the AMA reports for the LED lighting. It really endeared me to the LED lighting manufacturers. They basically mention my name, and you'll probably hear 4 or 5 swear words from them. But about 40% of the IES now supports what I've been saying. And they actually invited me to come and have a debate with the chair, this guy named Brian Liebel, who's chair of the IES Standards Committee. He hates me. So we're going to have a debate. I thought it was going to be just a small gathering. It turns out, I didn't even realize this, it's 5,000 people, every lighting manufacturer in the world, 60 countries represented. So they're going to invite the press. I'm going to talk first for 30 minutes, then he's going to talk for 30 minutes, and then we're going to have a 45-minute debate. So wish me well, and I hope I can get out of there alive. Then in March, the IES annual meeting, which is in Quebec City, I've been invited to come to that as well. So I won't miss the March meeting, but I'll let you know how that goes.
Can I ask a question, please? In New Hampshire, each bill gets assigned to a committee. Is that what happens in Mass?
Each bill, we do not have true democracy. Basically, you have chairs of committees and you have the Speaker of the House, and whatever they want passes and what they don't want doesn't pass. It's the way it works.
That's my question. In New Hampshire, they get everything gets sent to a committee.
Like I said, I'd rather have New Hampshire's legislature.
But they don't do that in Mass.
No, they don't.
They do nothing.
By the way, in case I didn't mention it, the front 3 rows here are reserved for all our ATMoB hecklers, so. I did get an email from Michael Shea, by the way. I probably didn't read it before, but he just wanted to know that their monthly events are going to be set up at the Children's Museum, continuing first Friday of each month, weather permitting, and Bob Toop has been involved in a lot, and he had a big thank you to Bob, by the way, for the help that he's been giving PopScope. They secured a grant from the Lynn Cultural Council to do outreach in Lynn for the spring and summer. They had a telescope training session that Bob Toop handled. Apparently, there are a few ATMoB members that are helping with PopScope, but also they have a few people that are not ATMoB members that are being trained to use telescopes. So this thing is really kicking into gear in the Boston area. But they're going to be going to Lowell. I believe it's this weekend coming up, or fairly soon. So I know Mike will get some things out to you if anybody's interested in doing some type of urban stargazing. Very good thing.
Len,
Yes, yes.
that weekend is also the Cambridge Science Festival, which runs from April 20th to 29th. I don't know specifically whether there's going to be any astronomy-related events. I'm too late to sign up. I screwed it up. But
Well, this will be coming, and we'll mention this again next month as well, so that'll still be on the board.
Perfect storm of astronomy events.
I know.
yeah.
Well, the thing is, Astronomy Day has been kind of lost in the shuffle there, and I wasn't able to do much last year because of that heart condition, but again, I did contact Haystack. We've got a pretty good working relationship with them now, so I will put out something as far as, you know, who I might want to have help me with this thing. I could actually do the talk by myself, but it's just organizing a few things, so I'll put something in. I'd certainly appreciate anybody to volunteer to help out with that at the Haystack if you're free on that particular night. Bruce has already raised his hand. Okay.
I'm free, yes.
Any old business to bring up?
Glenn, can I make one more announcement?
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to introduce Meredith Rumore, is that how you say it? Rumore. She's a graduate student at Boston University, and she's actually doing a project on clubs throughout Boston, and she's chosen to evaluate the amateur telescope makers of Boston as her first project, and she is looking for members to interview. I don't know if you've got a group already that you've spoken to or anything like that throughout after the meeting, and she's going to take a few pictures and things like that. And she's got a multimedia type of approach online that you're going to be putting together for the club. So I wanted to welcome you, and if anyone is interested in speaking with her, if she has availability, please do. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Does anybody have any old business to discuss? Anything new to come up that we need to announce? Okay, at this point, I know we need to get set up here. I'll read a little bit of a blurb about Kevin Collins. You probably remember him from last year when he talked about converting a 13.1-inch Odyssey telescope into something that really works well. I brought mine in and nobody wanted to bid on it, so that was kind of embarrassing. But anyway, are you set to go? I'm just going to do a little bit of a...
I'm set to go.
Okay. Let's see what I got here. Again, you all know about the talk he gave before. Kevin returns. He's going to take up his journey into totality to see the Great American Eclipse of 2017. Kevin and his eclipse chasing partner Sean started planning their epic road trip 2 years ago. They ultimately traveled 2,500 miles through 12 states, chasing clear skies, often changing their direction from hour to hour. You'll see and hear about happenings on the road, stops along the way, how nail-biting decisions were made, and a recount of this amateur astronomer's heartfelt emotions as he experienced totality for the first time. We introduced Kevin last time, so you know pretty much about him. He's a member of the amateur, there's a 5A, right? 5A from Amherst. The main thing you want to know about him is he's a winemaker, so if you don't ask winemaking questions at the end here, but before he leaves, you want to find out a little bit more about winemaking. And I'm going to turn the floor over now to Kevin.
Glenn, you need to ask him to point out whether he's an amateur or a professional winemaker.
Both.
Well, we could be a little bit of both, I guess. They do sell their wine at different, and he'll tell you, there is one outlet here in the area that sells their wine.
Sales, where's the catch?
I was just saying we should have had him do the refreshments tonight.
So 30 seconds on that note, since we're there. I am one of the winemakers at a winery out in Florence, Massachusetts, which is in Northampton. I had done volunteer work at that winery for about 3 years, and the owner said, "Hey, you want to make some money doing this? I'll work around your full-time job." And so I turned that 15 hours a week or so into money. Also, my partner and I, Tim, make wine at home. Got about 40 gallons sitting in the basement right now, so that's the other hobby. So,
What's the name of the winery?
Mineral Hills. Yeah, it's a little family-owned thing on a farm. We do about 2,000 cases a year. So, and I can give anybody info about that afterward if you want. So we're gonna have fun with this talk tonight. This is not gonna be a technical talk in any way. It's gonna be all about an incredible trip that I had. And so we're gonna talk about the eclipse, talk about the experience, how we got there. And I've also got some pictures of a couple places we stopped. So we're gonna go on a quick 5-minute tour down to the Mammoth Caves too. So that ought to be kind of fun. So we're gonna start with that. So about 2 years ago, actually it's more than 2 years now, it was back in mid-2015, my friend Sean and I started to plan this trip, and it was originally going to be Sean and his wife and myself and my partner Tim. We were going to go away for, the 4 of us and travel somewhere out west and watch the weather and see what we can do. 3 days later, Sean says, "Yeah, no, it's going to be just you and I. We're having a second kid, and it's going to be about a month and a half before the eclipse, and Mom obviously isn't going to leave for an extended period of time that early in the game." So that's how that ended up. So it went from 4 of us, because of course Tim's like, "I don't want to be a third wheel," and doesn't quite have the astronomy bug that I do. So he took a vacation with his best friend when I went away for this. Close enough for me. So there was that, which was a great way to start off the whole thing. And this next piece was pretty cool. So, being the nerd that I am, and many of us are, I was playing around on Google Earth to see where the greatest duration was of the eclipse and the greatest eclipse was. All those little things we like to look at. And so I'm on Google Earth, and I'm taking a peek at, we'll just stop here for a second. So, familiarize everybody with this again. We've all seen this thousands of times. This point right here, right in southern Illinois, was where greatest duration was. So of course I decided to go looking around on Google Earth to see what I can find in that spot. And kept going. Got this far and said, "Hey, this kind of looks familiar. Like these things here are grapevines, and so are those, and over here." Sure enough, it is in fact, I believe it's called the Blue Sky Winery. You can see all the tables and chairs and all that stuff. So of course, industry affiliation's great. So I call up the winery. I said, "How are you guys doing this?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we got a big party going on. We're gonna let people camp out in the fields over here and do whatever you want. We're technically full at 1,000 people. So we can't help you." I said, "Well, what if I work for a winery?" "Oh yeah, bring a couple bottles of your wine, we'll find a spot for you, it's no problem." Like instant. And so we thought about that for a while, and ultimately decided that that is not what we're going to do. Since it was only Sean and I, we decided that this is a vacation that all of the resources, money and otherwise, going toward this trip are to go see totality, no matter what. The whole deal was to keep that in mind. The budget was planned around that. The plans were planned around that. And this was the big one. Be mobile, mobile, mobile. Our thing, we talked to each other once we knew it was the 2 of us, and we both don't care about riding in the car for hours on end, had said, we are not going anywhere where we can get stuck. So no eclipse parties, nothing like that. We are just going to travel to where we need to travel to see this thing. So that's ultimately what we decided to do, the 2 of us. And that began this whole exciting adventure. So So again, 2,500 miles across 12 states. Of course, 900 of that was going home. So this is what we did. Any of you used Hotels.com? Yeah, great. I don't work for them, but I can tell you they are the most incredible thing that I've ever experienced in the world. That and iPads with a cellular connection. So what we did was we picked out 17 hotels across the country, from South Carolina all the way to Oregon, and we made reservations at every single one of those 17 hotels for a week, every night, for that week around the 21st. And what was neat about it was when we did this, it was so far before the eclipse, none of the hotels had really caught on yet about what was going on. So all of the cancellation policies are 24 hours. Score, right? During the trip also, kind of a weather nerd in really bad ways. Looking at all 5 of the major US models, the Euro, the JMA, water vapor imagery, and forecasting. Tuning into the National Weather Service discussions like mad, usually every time they came out with a model update according to GFS. And of course, fire bulletins for way out west, for the fires on the West Coast. And it was just continuous Hotels.com and this stuff the entire drive in the car. Now I get car sick, so back seat, no way. Front seat, passenger, most of the time okay. So I did most of the driving, and Sean had his iPad out, and all he was doing was playing on Hotels.com and dealing with all the weather models to see what we were doing and where we were headed. You guys remember the weather around the country that week?
Oh, yeah.
It was awful, right? And the forecasts were about as reliable as they usually are. Most of us in the weather world who talk about the GFS, which is the global forecast system, supposedly the United States saving grace for worldwide weather forecasting, which isn't, is aptly known as the garbage forecast system. Amazingly enough, for that 1 week, it was one of the more accurate weather models. Go figure. So the one time you think you can't trust it and you really want to, and you have to, and yeah. So that was pretty exciting. Have to pay attention to what I'm doing. Go. So again, here's the path, and the states I have highlighted in blue are some of the ones we traveled through, but I want to go through how we came up with where we ended up. And I'll tell you the whole irony at the end. It's kind of funny. So these dots are the 17 hotels that we reserved across the country. So see if you can follow my thought process on this. So what we decided we were going to do is during the week of before the eclipse, the Monday through Thursday of that week, we paid close attention to a lot of things, including the fires out on the West Coast. Smoke doesn't do well for the sun's corona during totality. So we paid a lot of attention to that stuff out west. Notice a lot of the hotels that we rented were not near the center line, out toward the west. And the reason we did that was because a lot of the roads out there aren't very big to travel on. So our thought process behind that was, A, there weren't a lot of hotels. B, good luck finding one that had any availability in it. And we even had trouble a year out. And C, like I said, the roads are small, traffic's tough. So what we decided to do out there is get ourselves away from the center line where we didn't have to deal with, $1,200 Motel 6s. And yes, we did find a Motel 6 somewhere in Nebraska, just for giggles. We were looking around. Motel 6, room with 2 beds, smoking room no less, $4,800 for the night before the eclipse. So we stayed away from all that. I don't think we paid more than $200 in any given night. But so what our plan was, if we had gone out west, was we were going to stay far from the center line, get up at an ungodly hour, just not go to bed, and drive to the center line for the eclipse the next day. But we didn't have to do that. So these are our 17 hotels, and so what we want to do is we kept an eye on all of the weather issues for the week before the eclipse, and then no matter what, decided we would leave Massachusetts and head out toward Ohio. And that meant that we had a jumping ground to go down to the southeast. We could head down into the middle of the country, Nebraska, Missouri, out that way, or we could head west. And so that was the plan. So then comes all of the fun stuff. So we actually got you guys probably had this little atlas that was made. Great atlas. This is what we started drawing all our plans out on and making dots and calling hotels. Great stuff. So here was our first problem. So about Tuesday of about a week before the eclipse, all the weather models put clouds up over the western portion of the country. Now, ultimately in most of that area that didn't happen, but it's a long drive. And was actually moving a weather system in toward the Casper, Wyoming area. Anybody go to Casper for the eclipse? How was the weather?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Brilliantly clear.
Day before?
Yep.
Yep, good. So, yeah, but our decision not to go west at that point was the fact that this had been on 3 days worth of model runs beforehand, and we figured if we drove out that far and got skunked, we wouldn't have time to get back, especially since there was going to be weather issues in other parts of the country. So another place we wanted to kind of stay away from was the southeast coast. This actually ended up being fairly true. We had some friends that were right on the coast, didn't see the eclipse. They had to run. They saw it, but they had to drive really, really fast and far. And then, of course, there was that. So this is ultimately the reason why we decided not to go west. It was too iffy. Forecast-wise for that area, plus the smoke from the fires, which ultimately also did not end up being a problem. But again, we figured if we had gone that far and couldn't get back, we wouldn't forgive ourselves for days and years on end. We actually had my friend Steve, he ended up, my friend Steve, nice guy, right? Nicest guy, do anything for anybody, lots of empathy, always thinks about, the other person's shoes and what it would be like to be in them. And very serious about that. But when I saw him after the eclipse and he missed it, he just looked at me and he said, "I need to change." So what he had done was his son had found a guy who had an eclipse party going on out in Nebraska. So he's like, "Yeah, well, my son found this place and everybody's talking about going to Nebraska, so that's what we're going to do." So he heads out to Nebraska. And then this guy let him stay in his campground and all this other stuff, and ultimately Steve's son, who also picked up all these beautiful traits, and they really are. I mean, Steve is a wonderful guy, so is his kid. But they decided that even though 50% of the people left the campground 2 days before the eclipse, that they were going to stay because the guy was nice enough to let them do it. Now, all right. So I said to Steve, so he misses the eclipse. That's a whole other thing. Lots of counseling going on. So I said, Steve, did you ask the guy if he'd care if you left? Well, I thought that was kind of cheesy. I'm like, did he tell you it was okay to leave? Yeah, he told us like 3 times. So I said, did we learn anything from this? Yeah, and that was no more conversation after that. So he ended up sitting somewhere, he was in, I think, western Nebraska, which from that point west got better and better. And actually this whole thing shifted this way a little bit. Yeah, so that was the central Nebraska problem. So with all of this going on, we decided that when we reached Ohio, let me see if I can show you the final route here. Oh, nope, let's look at these. So these are some of the things we were looking at. This is the garbage forecast at GFS. This was initialized on the 16th of August. And how many of you guys like AccuWeather? All right, that's a good thing, because AccuWeather's AccuWeather. They rely solely on the GFS, which is why they're always wrong with snowstorms and everything else. So if you look at this map, so this is total cloud cover for the country. So if you look at this map, notice this area that's got a lot of clouds, and then this area here that has a lot of clouds, and then the nice area there, and some niceness here, and a little bit up there. You ready for this one? Here's AccuWeather's map. So this is, they take this stuff verbatim off of models that aren't really good, and that's what you get. This thing was totally wrong. Well, this was right, this not quite, this was beautiful in here, not good there. And of course, most of the, actually Casper's here, so most of the West Coast did really good for that region. And I don't think right on the coast they had any trouble. We had one member of our club that was all the way out sitting on the Oregon coast.
Cleared up on the coast.
Yeah. So, and then of course this was initialized 2 days later, and also this is the Euro. So this is a model that we can generally trust. That was kind of bonkers. It was out of its mind the whole week. And we can tell it was out of its mind because from model run to model run there was no consistency. So now we've got the one we can trust that doesn't know what it's doing. And then we have the one that we don't like to trust that's sort of consistent. So that was driving me absolutely bananas because I'm sitting here looking at these things, trying to figure out where we're going to go and what we're going to do, and none of it makes sense. So. Smoke data, this was stuff we were checking out for the wildfires that are out west at the time. And luckily things changed, died down, some winds changed, stuff like that. So no smoke problems across most of the western part of the country, which was good along that path. And then finally, for this stuff, this is another cloud cover forecast thing. This was actually done the day before the eclipse on the 20th. And still, for the area that I was in, it was saying we were going to be sitting at 36% cloud cover, and as you'll see in a little while, we had absolutely none where we were. So, that is our drive path. And we actually started early on Friday morning before the eclipse. We headed down along Lake Erie. Brought ourselves down into Ohio, where we stopped in one of the hotels for a night and decided that, the next morning we would take a look at what this area of the country looked like, and from there decide whether we jump south or south and east. Ultimately, we ended up in Murphy, North Carolina. Anybody ever been to North Carolina? Great Smoky Mountains?
Yeah.
Gorgeous, right? Beautiful. So that's where we ended up. Yeah. And that's where I officially freaked out, and we're going to talk about that. Yep. So that was kind of an interesting place. We didn't stop. Yeah. So my question is, do you get the bourbon in the whiskey, or is the bourbon and the whiskey in the candy? Yeah, bourbon everything out there, obviously. Good stuff. Lots of good food and bourbon sauces and all those things, and bourbon itself. Yeah. So this is where we jumped off the highway. We decided we were going to take a walk down into Mammoth Caves. Anybody been there? I think I asked that already. Yeah. So neat place. We didn't have a lot of time because we're on the road, so we did their 35-minute long self-guided tour. They take you into one of the largest rooms in the caves. Tim and I actually have a trip planned to go back. We're going to visit some friends down in Tennessee, in Nashville, and we're going to make our way through here so we can go to some of the bigger cave tours. But I'll just show you some pictures. We were down in there having a blast. Handheld, sorry, no tripods. But huge rooms down there. This is just a quick walk. You know, if you go to like Howe Caverns out here or Luray Caverns down in Virginia or places like way better, way bigger. Not a lot of formations in this part of the caverns, as far as stalactites and stalagmites go. But you can imagine. One of the things that you get to see on this particular tour is the ceiling collapsed in one of these tunnels. And boy, what a big pile of rubble. I mean, you would not want to be anywhere near it. So I guess down in this portion of the tunnel, when we were down there, this thing actually sits underneath the visitor center. Then it comes around the corner. And up and out we go. So yeah, it's about a 35, 40-minute walk. Beautiful entrance with a nice little waterfall. So, this is officially where I start to freak out. So let me tell you the story. So we're down in Kentucky, we leave Mammoth Caves. We decide that we're not going any further west, so now Sean's we got to get back to cell service first. That's the first thing we got to do. Because he's got to get on hotels.com and start canceling things before we start paying for them. Now, remember when I said, we keep the budget in mind when you think mobile? So he and I each put aside $500, assuming we would eat that in hotels we weren't going to use. Again, we're not doing anything else except finding Totality, so that's the expense of the trip. We're not going to Disney World, we're not. So we raced back to the car because it's like 2:45. We got to get in touch with them by 3. We don't think we had cell service when we left the highway, so off we go. So we finally get out. Sean's going like mad, cancels the hotels, and then we get down into Nashville. So now we're sitting in Nashville like, oh yeah, the weather looks great, sky looks beautiful. It's about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. So we start reading the weather, the forecast discussions for the local weather service offices. And they're like, oh yeah, we're looking up, beautiful sky, it's not too hot out. Oh yeah, tomorrow's going to be a carbon copy of today. It's going to be a great day for the eclipse. So we're like, all right, we got a hotel, we're good. We got it for both nights. Sit out on the hotel's lawn with the telescope, enjoy the eclipse. And awesome. So then Sean's like, what do we do for the rest of the day? The only thing I know of in Nashville is the Grand Ole Opry. So I said, we can go tour that. So Sean picks up the iPad again, makes a reservation for 2 tours at the Grand Ole Opry, $50 a piece. Then we go in and we have lunch. Great. So we're sitting there, no windows to see outside. And I think I was at some Whole Foods thing at the bar, eating one of the big bars, Whole Foods bars down in Tennessee. So I'm sitting there and, beer here and Whole Foods stuff there and everything else. And we walked outside. I look up and crap. So what had happened was daytime heating, 65% of the sky was covered with clouds. No sooner do we see that, we get back on the discussion again. It's been updated 10 minutes before that. Carbon copy of today is going to be tomorrow. Now it's about noon, right? Getting hot. I mean, when we were down there, the temperatures were, mid-80s to 90, humid as can be. So of course you're going to get cumulus clouds, and they're going to hang around. So now I start to freak out. Now I'm like, this is not good. So rewind to the backstory. When Sean had found out that he was going to have kid number 2, talk about freaking out. He was also he had also made a reservation. This was back in 2015 when we first started. One of the first places we made a reservation at was this place in Murphy, North Carolina, a Holiday Inn Express. Nice place, by the way. The first place we made the reservation, the only reason we made the reservation there was because a friend of his was taking his family on vacation and said, you know what, for that year we're going to plan a vacation down around that part of the country and we'll get a hotel somewhere along the center line and that's where we're going to go. So his friend's there. It's the first hotel we made a reservation at. So we get on the telephone, call him up. Hey, what's it look like over in Murphy? Now mind you, we spent $100 on the tickets for the Grand Ole Opry tour. He says, oh, it looks great out here. You're in really good shape. Clear skies, nothing going on. It's kind of cool. Clouds in the mountains around us. Smokies in the Cherokee National Forest and all that stuff. Just sky looks perfect. By this time, it's about 1:30. Thinking 1:30, 2:30, carbon copy. Same thing. Carbon copy day of tomorrow. So I look at Sean, and Sean looks at me, and I'm like, off we go. So cancel the reservation for the hotel that we're in for the next night. And then Sean goes, uh-oh. I said, what? $100, we're going to lose it. No tour at the Grand Ole Opry. We had to be there in like 10 minutes. Called them up, said, sorry, can't go, and off we went. So there's $100 out of our $1,000, use it or lose it budget. So off we go. Now, has anybody driven from Nashville to North Carolina? Down through like Chattanooga and all those places. Beautiful drive. Chattanooga.
After the eclipse we did.
Yep. So it's gorgeous drive. So off we go, and this is Parksville Lake and Parksville Lake Dam. It's east of Chattanooga, Tennessee, as we're starting to head out into North Carolina. And this is Big Frog Mountain in the background here, and that's the Cherokee Mountain National Forest. Tidbit of a fact, that is the highest mountain, I gotta figure out how to say this. So that is the highest mountain that is the furthest west in the Appalachians. So if you're on top of Big Frog Mountain, there is nothing higher than that until you reach, I forget where it is, out in East Texas, somewhere. Northern Texas, whatever that tidbit's worth. So this is where we come around the corner. Sean's like, oh, this is a great place to take a picture. So we stop. Then I see that. Self-proclaimed weather nerd, right? Realizes mountains make clouds. I didn't know where Murphy was. I didn't know if it was in the middle of that over there somewhere. So this is where I start. Now, anybody that knows me, my mother, Tim, Sean, most of my friends will tell you that I never shut up. Never happens. So we leave here, we start driving through the mountains. It's a beautiful drive, and about 45 minutes later, Sean goes, what's wrong? Like, nothing. He goes, nah, there's something wrong. It's like, you're never this quiet. You've been shut up since we left on Friday morning. And so I said, no, I'm fine. So off we go. Clouds in the windshield. And so we get to Murphy. Here we are, getting all settled down, ready to go. This is the morning of, but the night before we get there, the sky is still completely clear. Now we meet up with Sean's friends. Now, Sean and I are 99% the same as far as, and it's the only time I mention political views go. But there's this little difference he and I have between some things. Spend 3 days in a car with somebody, all anxious about an eclipse you've been planning for 2 years, and that little percentage comes like huge. So when we get there, first thing I say, I get out of the car, and there's Sean's friend and his wife, and he goes, how's the drive? So I got challenging about 5 hours ago. So that was a big laugh thing, and it was great. So we're parked. This is where we decided to go. So the irony of this is the fact that 2 years before this was the first hotel we made a reservation at. So, and it was funny because Sean's driving the whole time. He's like, we're gonna end up in Murphy. I know we're gonna end up in Murphy, and sure enough, we did. So we get to the Holiday Inn Express. They're doing their own eclipse party. So they have food vendors that are coming out the day of the eclipse. They've got all of these things going on, and but they don't have one very important thing, which really isn't even important because it's an eclipse. But no binoculars, no solar filters, no telescopes. Zippo. So we had my Genesis with us, which actually ended up great. I don't recommend anybody do this, is put a Genesis on a Vixen mount. These little porta mounts are great, and they're really strong, and they're beautiful for grab and go. Genesis is a little too much for it, but it worked for the day fairly well. So we get there. Now, how many of you have been to a Walmart in the Southeast? Big, right? So we go into this, I don't even have the picture. So we go into this Walmart, right? So we have to get food for lunch. We've got our hotel for 2 nights. So we go into the Walmart. I walk in the door, and it takes you in, it's right in Murphy, takes you inside one corner of the building. And all you see, as far as the eye can see, are fluorescent light strips. Like just rows of them off into the distance. Amazing. So far that they blend in the other corner. I was like, no way. So Sean has to get oil for the car, and I've got to get food. So the food's at the door, the oil's way in that back corner. So off Sean goes. He walked all the way back to the other side of that store, and I had enough time to get salads, sandwich meats, bread, some other stuff, walk around finding cookies, some chips, and things to drink. And just about as I'm getting ready to check out, about 15 minutes later, here comes Sean. No word of a lie. It's like I found the oil right away. It took me 7.5 minutes to walk from here to the other corner of the Walmart. I think it's incredible. Yeah. So if you want some exercise when it's not nice out, visit your local Walmart. I was stunned by the fact that the lights just all merged together in the corner. So we get up the morning of the eclipse. And now, let's see. So one of the things that we did not do, we were at this location, figured there's no way we're going to do anything else like look at weather maps because we're done. Freak out mode had started. So we didn't. We went to bed that night. We had the little dinner and we went to bed that night. And middle of the night, I woke up once. Almost looked at the iPad. Said, nope, I'm back to sleep. Woke up again at 4:30, and then again at 5:15, and then at 5:45, and then at 6. And then I finally just looked over at Sean. I'm getting up, flipped all the lights on, went to the shower. He's like, oh yeah, no, I've been laying awake since about 2. So, so we get up and the sky is perfect. Not a cloud in the sky, it's all blue, it's nice and clear, it's a little humid but not too bad. But we know the temperatures are forecast to go above 90 that day. And it's soup kitchen, it's soupy down there. So anyway, so we get up in the morning, we start setting stuff up. The hotel had like these glasses and t-shirts and all these things. I mean, it was really great. They went all out. And any guest who was staying at the hotel, the food vendor thing was all free. The hotel paid for it for the day. So we had a whole group bring set. Now they had a big parking lot set up. The town of Murphy had 4 viewing locations. And they had about 18,000 people in town that day. It's like a little Northampton out in Western Mass where I live. So 18,000 people in town that day, and this spot was up on a hill behind the main drag, so not a lot of people knew it was there. So we didn't have any traffic troubles. Obviously, we walked out of the hotel, but no space issues or anything else. I mean, it was great. The company that was the property next door let the hotel use the grass for parking. So this was really cool. So this is where I kind of started to freak out. So this is what it looked like, mid to late morning. Absolutely beautiful. When I took this picture, however, there was these little wispy clouds starting to form right over the trees, right there. And then if I look back this way, I was looking off toward the Great Smokies, which meant clouds. So we had breakfast, we got things set up. Now, I hadn't said anything most of the morning. I was totally quiet, constantly looking at the sky going, you know, it's only like 7:30 and it's things like 2:30 in the afternoon. I did not know what I was gonna do. And it's bad, because I don't usually freak out. I'm usually pretty calm. It became a running joke for the rest of the day, but at my expense. So this is what we had for stuff, weather-wise. So then, not a good idea when it's 90-something degrees out. I don't care how many sides are open on that thing, it's a greenhouse. So that was my Sean's friend's kids playing around in that thing. I think they were in it for about 10 minutes. And then the adults wanted to sit in there for a few minutes. And yeah, give you an idea how hot it is. So we had a cooler with towels in it and ice over the head, around the shoulders. I mean, it was hot, which freaked me out even more because heat, clouds, you know, all night. At this point, we couldn't go anywhere. We wouldn't be able to get fast enough to go where we needed to go. John's looking like he's about to pass out, but that didn't last long either. Scarecrow, Wizard of Oz. So yeah, I think after this thing was empty for the day. I mean, it was like, he was telling me that we were sitting in this thing, and so I was like probably about 140 degrees in there. So yeah, everybody's playing around with the telescope. So now, at this time, if you look at the top of the picture, you can see the air is a little moist. And we got those clouds coming out of the trees, and they're starting to go up. And I'm literally sitting in the back of the car trying to figure out what to do like this. Not saying a word. Sean's like, gee, I wish you figured this out like 2 days ago. So he couldn't figure out what to do. He's like, all right, you're not eating lunch, you eat all the time, and you're not talking, you talk all the time. What do we do? So he sets up, not a good idea, but I watched it. Anybody see the PBS program called Totality, before the eclipse? If you didn't see it, go Google that and find it and watch it. It's a great program. all about the eclipse, and they talk about places all across the country, including Casper, how they were going to fit all the people there to do this. So that sucked up about an hour's worth of time. Then I had to go inside and make lunch and stayed in there for an hour. Didn't even want to look out the window. It was awful. So yeah, so you can see clouds. And all I can think is, oh, it's going to go all the way up. It's going to look like Nashville yesterday, and then I'm going to have to go home. It's going to be a long ride home. That was a big discussion. Long ride home if we didn't actually see it. Yep. But then what we started noticing throughout the day was that, yes, heat, clouds, some moisture, then it started to dry out, which was expected. Water vapor forecast in the atmosphere said as Monday progressed, the atmosphere would dry out. However, it would dry out at a certain point, and then you get this clear sky, but then it was going to be run over by this crap coming from western Tennessee over Nashville. And Nashville was iffy. Some people in Nashville saw the eclipse, others didn't. So we were in this window, which freaked me out even more. So, here we are. It's starting to look good, but we know, we can see it on the visible satellite that the clouds off in western Tennessee are headed our way. So more shaking, more no eating. It's great. A lot of people having fun with the scope, notice the duct tape? Long story with that, I won't even get into it. But one of the things I really like to do is, I love public outreach. I love to take people and let them look through telescopes, big and small, first views of Saturn, first views of the moon, just to hear that, hear that excitement, that enthusiasm. And this was great. I mean, we had people all day long peeking through these scopes, and that was just a lot of fun. Many of us look at the sun in visible light all the time with a filtered telescope. To other people, especially during an eclipse, it's pretty impressive. Even to me, it still is. This kid had a blast. He was probably had an IQ of like 4,000. Yeah, he was a really smart kid, knew his stuff, and you could tell because you'd have conversations with him. He would ask questions that tell you he was processing the conversation. So that was great. It was fun throughout the day. So those are those clouds over the Smokies off in the background. Didn't like those either. More kids in the telescope. Over here, the telescope. So, just before the partial phase started, this is what started to happen. All of those clouds that were getting up toward where the sun was going to be during totality, started to dissipate. The ones that were coming out of the trees started to, dissipate lower and lower in the sky, and then all of this stuff started, the haze, the moisture in the air started to disappear. So, and we could feel it. We could feel the dryness coming through. So now I'm just going to run through some pictures of the actual eclipse itself. We've all seen these. So these were taken with 200 millimeter Tamron runaround lens on my SLR with a 1,000 Oaks filter on it. Took some pretty good pictures. So now this is where I finally started to kind of calm down. Clouds were dropping, and a defining moment. And I don't know. Tell me. I don't know if this applies to anybody else, but part of the whole anxiety for me for this trip was the waiting game. Not just, oh, it's 4 days away, we have to drive, are we going to get there, where are we going to go? It's, okay, we're here, and we got like 7 hours, and the sky's kind of doing whatever. But as soon as the partial phase started, is when I finally started to come down off of that massive amount of anxiety, and I don't get anxious. So Sean's at home telling Tim this whole story. It was great. I was like, about a jokes for about a month after. So anybody else experience that? Like going to see an eclipse and it's all that anxiety, and even when the partial phase gets started, you kind of start to calm down a little bit?
Only if the weather is clear.
When the weather is clear. Not if you're going, those clouds are really close. Yeah.
Should we leave or not?
Yep. Yeah. So this was just taken with the iPhone through the eyepiece into the telescope. Standard visible light filter sitting on there. Yes, we've all gone here. So this is absolutely incredible because, you know, all of the things going on with this are all the classic things you hear about. It's getting dark, it's getting cooler. And in a second, I'll talk about my observations of seeing the surroundings and what was going on during that. One of the things I did, both Sean and I did that night after the eclipse, is we sat in our hotel room, both of us, for about 3 hours, typing on our iPads of the entire experience, because you forget it. It's like any other massive experience you have. It's awesome, I'm going to remember this forever, and you forget the details. So we sat down that evening and wrote, and I'm glad we did, because it's just spectacular. So this, I want to say this was about, I don't know, probably 20 minutes before totality. That was our sky for the rest of the day. And actually it got even clearer than that. All right, so, see if I can put some of this stuff into words. So we were not in an open plane, so we couldn't watch the shadow coming racing at us across from the horizon out at us. But what we were able to see is you know, one part of the sky start to get really dark. And there was a woman at the eclipse, and she comes up to Sean and I, and she goes, "You guys are newbies, aren't you?" So what do you mean? She says, "I've been listening to the whole conversation over there. You're all nervous. You're not eating anything. You don't talk. He's all way too giddy. So you guys have never seen one of these before." Like, "Yep, nope." She goes, "Okay, nope, that's fine." And I said, "Neither is my husband. I've seen 4." She said, "So I need to tell you something." She goes, I am an organic biologist, organic chemist." And she says, "So I'm a pretty science-minded person, real technical, black and white. You know, I know exactly what's going on with this huge thing. I know the physics behind this and everything that's going on." But she said, "I think you guys are the same. I've been listening to your conversation. But she said, I will tell you this, it will move you." I'm like, John and I are both like, "Okay, no, we get it. It's going to be kind of a really neat experience." And she goes, No, this will move you." I said, "Okay." And she just kind of smiled and went back over and sat in her chair. And, which was great, but we'll get back to that part. So as we're watching everything darken around us, the best way I can describe the darkening of totality, you know, as you approach totality, is all of the things around you are color-wise very, very saturated. The colors are very much enhanced. It's like putting a polarizer on a camera. Very enhanced colors, very saturated colors, but they're not lit. Make any sense? It's like you lit the surrounding areas with a dull, reflection off of some dull silver. But all of the colors and all of that saturation and that vivid color is still there. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. So that's the first thing I try and describe. So I have a test for you guys. Now I did this because people wanted to see the picture at home. The fastest way to get it off onto the phone was to take a picture of the screen on the camera. So I did that, but anybody notice the other neat thing in this picture? What's that?
Right above the power, there's
No,
the
on the right knee.
Yep.
right there.
Okay, right there. So what that's from, and I didn't notice it until after I looked at this picture, what that is from, all something we see, the leaves and the trees and stuff like that, but when I was sitting in this chair with the sun awning over the top, there was a rivet hole in it. And that's what did that, which is kind of cool. I just thought that was a neat thing that I never noticed until I got home. Yeah. So, here we go. All right, one too far. That is not the real thing. That is not that eclipse. It is the real thing. So here we are. We're at this point. Now we're getting excited. This is where, actually, it started probably 5 minutes before this. This is where the adrenaline's going for me. Just here we are, 2 years of planning, all the anxiety, the drive, figuring everything else, all the politics, the rubber ducky, the drive in here, the grand, all of that stuff. Here we are, and it's going to happen. Unless there was something really wrong, but all of it came down to this moment. The adrenaline for me was absolutely incredible, and So here we are, we're looking around, we've got that beautiful deep purplish blue, navy blue sky, all of this area lit with these colors I've never seen in darkness. And that's what it is, they're colors, bright's not a good word, vivid and brilliant colors in darkness. Absolutely spectacular. I was also wearing a white t-shirt that day. And we'll get to where that comes in a second. So of course, I'll throw this up here because it wasn't that eclipse. But so we got to Bailey's beads, right? For me, really incredible. You know, that's where I had glasses on, and just as the beads were just about going, I pulled those off, and then blam, there it was. This incredible corona. But before we get to that, best way I can describe it. And this is the one part of the eclipse that I can still see perfectly in my head. And that is, picture this, Sicily, 1990. Driving down the highway. Anybody get that reference? Yep. Bingo. So driving down the highway on a beautiful sunny day, and a truck goes by you with a chrome bumper. And in that chrome bumper, when that truck goes by, is the sun. That very, very cold, white, silver, brilliant starburst on that bumper, that is the sun, is exactly to me what that looks like. It's the only thing I can compare it to. Anybody have any similar thoughts? Is that a close approximation to what others have seen?
That's really good.
Awesome. Good. Okay, that's good to hear. So now every time I'm driving down the road and somebody goes by with like a car mirror or a chrome bumper and I see that, I'm like, oh, eclipse time. No. So it's great. That's what I remember about that. And the nicest thing was I knew there was another one. So now we got to the point of this was done, out pops the corona, and price, just speechless as far as you go. I mean, when that woman said this will move you, it moved me. It absolutely did. For the science-minded guy that I am, I struggle with the art end of winemaking because that's not the way my mind is geared. It's an experience that involves the sciences and astronomy that really just took me and took me right to the move, full move indicator. Tears, like half the other people that were there, and all I can remember is just repeating the word wow with everybody else. I mean, it was just absolutely spectacular. And one of the things that we did for my astronomy club in Amherst when we were talking about the eclipse was we did a talk about it, and we kept telling people, don't try and photograph it if you're not good at doing that stuff and everything's not set up first and you haven't seen one of these. And don't fiddle with tech. Just, if you've never seen it, watch the thing. That was our plan. Of course, we got the telescope out there. We got cameras on tripods. Never looked through the camera at the eclipse. Had it pointed in the right place and just pushed the shutter while I was looking up. And so what we did at the astronomy meeting to prove our point was we set a timer for 2.5 minutes. And we rang the bell and kept talking. People were like, what are they ringing the bell for? And we kept talking a little bit and talk, and then a few minutes later, an alarm went off. And everybody's looking around, and we stopped. And we said, does anybody remember the amount of time that just took place between that bell and this alarm? They're like, oh yeah, wasn't much. Why, what's it for? We're like, that's the length of totality most people are going to see, that or less. And this is why you don't want to go play with cameras if you haven't done this before. And that, we heard from many people, drove that point home pretty good. They were sitting in a room and a talk, and the time went by like that. I knew we had another diamond ring coming through on the other side, but wanted to view that corona. Absolutely incredible. For those of you that saw the eclipse, we definitely had very easily visible prominences. Most beautiful pink and reddish stuff I've ever seen. And I got to look through the Genesis, which was even more amazing because it pulled out the structure in that corona incredible. But yeah, so standing there at this beautiful, beautiful purple dark sky, we had some planets out, we had some stars out, all of that odd coloring around us, and then just this jet black hole in the sky. and that beautiful corona on either side. It's no way I can, I mean, you've seen it in pictures, but absolutely incredible. So what I decided to do was then lay on the ground and watch the rest of totality. After I'd looked, quick peek through the scope, pushed the button on the camera, now I was on the ground looking up. White t-shirt on, sun snakes right across, people coming over and going, whoa, what's going on? Yeah. I had about 8 people over me once they figured out what it was, and so that was pretty cool. Got to see those. So of course, once I realized that, off came the t-shirt, down on the ground so I could look at them. Which is not a good thing to do. So that was incredible, but totally, for me, absolutely moving. I was very surprised that in the realm of a science-related thing that I could be taken to that other extreme so quickly and so fast, and so completely. Just spectacular. So this is a picture I actually, I gotta look at this because I gotta figure out which one is which. I think this is mine. So I didn't, maybe, yeah, that's mine. So I didn't bracket my camera. Again, I wasn't really, that's not mine. Looks different up there. So this is Sean's. I'll leave this up here after so people can come look at it. Sean got a beautiful bracketed photograph of the eclipse. Of totality. It was absolutely gorgeous. In the, you'll see in the picture that these...
You look up the monitors.
Yeah, look at the monitors.
Grab the monitors, if you can see them. Yep, there it is. Without, even the big halo wasn't there. You know, but absolutely gorgeous. This structure, you know, ran off the field of view that I had, and I figured the power I was running, probably about I don't know. But ran off the field a little bit on either side of the telescope. The structure was absolutely incredible, and the prominences with no hydrogen alpha scope was, yeah, I don't know how else to explain that. So we had the other diamond ring coming out the other side, and after 5 harrowing days of anxiety, everything was starting to kind of fall right off, so that was really good. And so out we go, and this is this is how close it came. I'm just going to push these and we'll watch what happens. Notice we got a little bit of stuff going on in there. And a little more halo around there, tiny bit. Mighty. Thinking about it. That was before the partial phase ended coming out. We were still partial at this point in time. This is the stuff that was over Nashville at the time. This is how close we were. Now you can see some clouds starting to creep in across the disk. And there they are. We still got a little bit left. Of course, we were like the last of like 7 people sitting out there because people saw totality and like, we're out of here. Yeah, so that was just after the partial phase ended. And then more came along afterward from the west. So, lucky, very, very lucky. So this was the crew. So what we did was we decided to get everybody else back together. People had come out, the hotel made an announcement. We wanted to get a picture of all the people that were out there that day. Obviously myself and Sean and the rest of the group. And then we got email addresses from all of these people, and I did that by giving out my phone number, cell phone. So everybody got in touch with me. We created a Google group to send an email out on so people could get this picture. People submitted pictures to me. We created a beautiful album online so everybody can go back and look at it. And yeah, so that was an absolute great day. It was hot, but a lot of happy campers, obviously. And you know, this was the sun headed down that evening. Murphy will forever be in my heart, no doubt. So last couple of pictures. So again, this is Sean's picture. You know, I'll probably just email this to email it out to the group or to you can send out because it's a gorgeous picture. He did really well with it. Took it with a Fuji mirrorless camera, bracketed well, and then I cheated a little bit. I took, there it is. So I took shots going in, put them together, and yes, I did, mirrored them on the other side. And when you do that, you have to get rid of the sunspots, because they doesn't look right. So yeah, I cheated a little bit on this, but it's what I wanted to do. And so what we did was we created a picture with this composite, Sean's picture of totality, and the picture of the group. I have one in a three-pane frame. I should have brought it with me. So I've got one for me, one for Sean, and we sent one to the hotel. So they have one now sitting in their lobby for the eclipse. Now, as I bring this to a close, there was one other thing, and I can guarantee you that my brother, regardless of all the good things that I had fun at the eclipse and all of that wonderful experience, I can guarantee you that my brother had a better eclipse day. As he became a grandfather on that evening. Of course, he was in the hospital the next day and visiting with little Emma. So that's what he got out of it, which is what it is. So, I don't know, that's it for me. Thanks for listening. It's awesome. We're done.
Does anybody have any questions? You're all
Oh, yeah, I think so. But thanks for listening. You know, we've heard a lot of eclipse stories around these days, and that was great to share again. Absolute blast. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we thank you all for coming tonight. Drive safely back home, and this meeting is adjourned.